RealTuners Radio.
Are you interested in learning how to tune electronic fuel injection live in person with the guys from RealTuners? We have 2-day courses in dyno shops across the country. Register for all of these at RealTuners.com. Click on RealTuners Live Classes. If you'd like to bring 2 or more people, talk to us about group discounts. For more info or to make a reservation, go to RealTuners.com or message us at RealTuners LLC on Facebook. Learn how to tune your own standalone EFI systems like Holley, FuelTech, Megasquirt, Haltech, Fast, and others on the chassis dyno. Includes topics such as traction control, individual cylinder tuning on a budget, and power adders. Upcoming class schedules are as follows. EFI Essentials in Northwest Arkansas, March 10th and 11th, and Dallas-Fort Worth, March 24th and 25th. GM Factory PCM using HP tuners at Shore Tuning near Lexington, Kentucky, April 7th and 8th. Holley EFI at 417 Motorsports in Springfield, Missouri, April 21st and 22nd. Advanced Standalone Tuning in Lexington, Kentucky, April 28th and 29th. EFI Essentials in Detroit, Michigan, May 12th and 13th, and May 26th and 27th in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Then, Holley EFI at 417 Motorsports in Springfield, Missouri, June 9th and 10th. These classes are designed to help you get your project running successfully in a course taught by people who actually do this kind of stuff for a living.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to RealTuners Radio, episode 37. Tonight, we have an awesome show for you. We have Troy Baum from RACEWires. This dude is a wizard of all things electrical when it comes to automotive. We also have our usual crew of misfits. John Bewley from Little John's Motorsports. Tom Sewell, Fuel Injector Development. Mark Dahlquist of Throttles Performance. Doug and Andy Cook from Motion Raceworks. Chris Delgado, Pro Speed. James Short, Shore Tuning. Tom Bigu, 3V Performance. Cody Bruce of Nano Nitrous. Scott Evans, Helix Tuning. Bill Fowler, Bear Brakes. And me, Rye Klepp from Bull City Speed. And now the man who says he would put ketchup on a steak before he put pineapple on a pizza, Scott Clark, RealTuners.
All right, what's going on? It's Wednesday evening, everybody. What's shaking? Oh, it is February 28th, 2018. This is the live RealTuners radio show. Still coming at you, episode number 37. Tonight should be pretty cool. Should be a really cool evening. My dog is sitting over here squeaking at me because there's half-eaten chicken dinner on the table. Sorry, dog. You don't get to have that. Anyhow, good to see all you guys logged in tonight. Interesting guest tonight. Troy Baum from RaceWires is here, which is going to be cool because this guy, well, wait till you see the slideshow. Take a look at the slideshow tonight. We got it going on YouTube live stream and on Facebook video. You get to see some of the stuff. In fact, I'll switch it on now. You get to see, I got a bunch of pictures of stuff we took off of his website of the work he does. Really cool stuff he does. A lot of race car wiring, a lot of, some not necessarily race cars, some show car stuff. All of it's super clean. All of it's super functional. So anyway, without further delay, what's up, Mr. Rye Klepp? How's it going?
What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Pretty good, man. Hey, man, I got to meet you this weekend in person finally at my class at Tick Performance.
I know.
Thanks for coming, man.
I thought you'd be taller.
What he's saying is you're fat.
Here we go.
Of course.
Oh,
here we go.
Damn.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You should have heard these guys shit talking each other before the show started. It was hilarious. But man, thanks for coming out. That was a good time. You and your buddy Scott came out and attended the class and hopefully enjoyed it. I mean, you know what? Go ahead and give me the review. And I already know, But like the car we had was a little bit problematic. That happens sometimes, believe it or not. But go ahead. I mean, you lay it on me. You don't got to be extra friendly. Did it suck? Was it worth the money? What was and you're 800 miles away from me now, so it's not like I can't do anything other than just delete you. But or mute you.
The ban hammer.
Yeah, I got the mute button.
It was good. It was it was kind of a little bummer that there was so many problems with the car. But
it happens.
I think it does, and it's a good picture of what can happen, especially for somebody who's they're building their first car, or these are the gremlins that you have to work through. There's always going to be issues on every single build that you do. 99% of the time, they're not going to go perfect the first time.
It sucked for you because you had to leave at like 5:45. We ran the class like 2 hours long because it was taking a while. And you and your buddy were the only ones that had to leave and had to get home. 15 minutes after you were gone, that thing was making big boy pulls on the dyno. It was good, better for everybody else that stuck it out, especially the guys that brought the car. They were stoked, but because they figured out a year's worth of gremlins in 2 days. But
yeah, we had a long drive ahead of us. We had to head back. We both had to be at work early in the morning on Monday. But, dude, shout out to Tick Performance, man. What an awesome facility.
That place is one of the nicest. Oh, dude, they're built on such a beautiful. It's on a damn mountaintop in the Smoky Mountains. I think that's the Smokies, isn't it? Or Appalachians, whatever.
Appalachians. Yeah.
Oh,
but
man.
It is like a picture storybook, picture perfect backdrop. Like the church. Remember Sunday morning the church bells rang.
Yeah, he's like the only
hey,
thing is
Scott,
we don't want to make polls before noon on Sunday because we got the church neighbors and we don't want those people being mad at us. Like, no, you don't, sir.
Which was super cool because like you'd walk outside and there's kids playing on the playground. On the other side, there's cattle walking up around these hills. I mean, it's literally Mayberry. Mount Airy, North Carolina is Mayberry. It's
Andy Griffith's hometown and the inspiration for the Mayberry on the TV show. Yep.
Yeah, so they have this badass shop with all of these killer, like every CNC manufacturing tool, building these sick race cars.
Yeah, they got a Herco.
On the outskirts of Mayberry.
Right.
So
it was cool. I didn't want to leave. I actually went across the street. Did you see that little radio station building across the street, WPAQ?
I saw the tower. I didn't see the building. Yeah,
so I actually went over there and just knocked on the door after I left on Monday about lunchtime. And the dude opened the place up, opened the doors up and showed me around. Nice guy. The son of the guy that built that place in 1948. Anyway, long story short, right across Thunder Road from the most perfectly named street to be on ever, was this little brick building with a big radio antenna sticking out the top of it, and it's WPAQ. And I know a bunch of people actually, a generation before mine anyway, grew up listening to WPAQ. Had the old timey radio shows and stuff with local music and bluegrass music and gospel and stuff like that. Just little old timey stuff, super cool stuff from the 40s. And instead of bulldozing the place in the last 20 years, they started streaming on the internet. So you can catch WPAQ if you're into that kind of stuff. But think, what was that movie? Shit. Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou? Think of that soundtrack there. That's kind of what the theme was with these guys. The neat thing about WPAQ is that they are, they made a shitload of recordings. The guy was into recordings, and he actually has a number of preserved recordings from like the late 1940s up till now in the National Archives, right? So they actually took this guy's recordings and, took them to the Smithsonian or wherever, and they refurbished the recordings, made them really high quality digital recordings and made them like, so they'll last forever. Anyway, just a neat story. And I had to go over and check it out because I had heard of the place and I didn't realize they were right across the street from Tick. So anyway, it was neat to check out, but back to like our regularly scheduled programming. I don't want this to be like the radio show. And whichever you guys is making a bunch of background noise, quit it. But anyway.
Not it.
So
dude.
Go ahead.
It was a good time, and I think I'm definitely I'll be taking the wife and kids back up there because that area that's pretty cool. It's a nice little quiet vacation spot, I think.
It was gorgeous. So what else is going on? Class is coming up. We played the commercial already. There's a bunch of stuff. The one at Blake Hughes' shop, the first one in April is sold completely out and with a huge waiting list. My advice is to come to the one in June for him, or actually in 2 weekends, March 10th and 11th, Northwest Arkansas. It's only like 2 hours south of Blake's shop. There's still 4 or 5 seats left on that one. So Midwest guys that are clamoring. I am trying to get more stuff on the calendar. up in the Northeast, sometime like starting July, August, September. So you Philly area guys will get taken care of. And then just trying to get some seats open up for you guys. I apologize for the ones that things are getting sold out quicker than I guess anticipated or whatever. So we'll try to get everybody taken care of. I want to meet all the demand that we possibly can. There's just one of me for the standalone stuff, but we're working on some other classes, working with James Short and some HP tuner stuff. That's going to be cool. That's about it. So without further ado, let's introduce tonight's guest from RaceWires. Check them out at racewires.com. Dude, these guys got I downloaded a bunch of pictures for his slideshow, which is playing right now. And man, I could spend 3 hours on this guy's website just looking at the cool stuff that this guy gets to work on. Holy crap. Welcome, Mr. Troy Baum. How's it going, dude?
Awesome, Scott. It's great to be here, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming on here. He hasn't cussed yet.
Woo,
you should have heard this guy when we started off.
It's coming.
Him and Bewley are real good buddies. Holy crap.
Way back.
Yeah, way back. It's good when you just start cussing each other. You don't even say hi. You just jump right into the shit.
He logged
talk.
on and they start cussing each other up and down. And I'm like, oh my God, are they serious? I wasn't quite sure what was going on. Holy crap.
That is how we say hi. Always good times, man. That's for sure.
East Coast stuff, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, easy on the good buddy thing. That's a little too much there.
Yeah, that's a little bit huggy for me.
So, anyway, I don't know. Where do we start with questions for this guy? I should put up the chat windows here. I got this fancy dancy chat windows scene here. Let me transition on that. Boom, that's up. Oh, people are already asking questions? No, not really yet. Just people are joining up. But
while everybody's asking, typing in their questions and thinking what they want to talk about, hey, why don't you tell us a little bit about your company and your background and how you got started?
And how long you've been doing it, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I started quite a few years ago, kind of like everyone else in a one-car shop, working on my own stuff, some buddy stuff. And then one thing led to another, did a couple race cars, and I've been at it full time for, I think about 4 or 5 years. I think John and I started kind of at the same time when you opened LJMS.
Yeah. That's what's cool, man. It's because, we were friends before while I was still, in my former life. And I got to working with a mutual friend, Ed Pfeiffer, and was doing some work on Ed's car, tuning it, and did the combination, inspect everything for it. And Troy and Ed and Jace Nestor and all the guys up, John Kesey, that whole Eastern Pennsylvania crew, as I affectionately refer to them. We got to hanging out, went to Yellow Bullet together, and me and Troy pretty much, we got started, at the same time. I think I got a little bit ahead of you. Was a little bit ahead of you, but I was pushing you, telling you to get off your ass and get it done.
Yeah.
Now he wants to kick you square in the nuts for that move. What were you thinking?
His wife might hate me, but he still loves me. That's all that matters.
This industry is freaking crazy.
It is nuts, dude.
And I'm kind of
good and bad ways.
Scott, I'm kind of a one-man band, so there's only one of me.
Yep.
And a million cars that need done.
I don't trust anybody to do my work for me out of my way. I mean, I guess I'm just picky like that, but it's like I just can't go hire like 5 other teachers and meet this demand and have them just sitting there reading a script. It's like, no, you needed to be the guy that was there to get Keith Berry's car started and running the first time or whatever.
Right.
It's how it
well,
is.
You're the guy.
You just don't tell people how it was and then they pass that along. It's like, no, people are going to have questions about stuff like that, but we'll get there. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt. I want to hear more about this. So you started off one car garage from home. I mean, now you got a decent shop there, it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a little back cave, I call it, in a small town. And I think I have 2 20 by 40 bays right now. Mostly filled all the time. It's going really well.
How long does the average car spend in your shop? It looks like they come in, they get done, they go out. How long are they there?
Yeah, I don't generally like to sit on cars. So the average car, I would say 2 to 3 weeks. Some go longer, depending on the scheduling.
Now, is that for a complete rewire, like from scratch with like nothing in it? You can do
most
2 weeks.
Yeah. Most times that's me having to pull the old stuff out too.
That's cranking.
Okay.
That's cranking.
Yeah,
cranking.
dude, that's
That's 40 hours, 60 hour weeks.
Grow.
Nope. No.
Minimum 60, 70 hour weeks, and that gets a little tiresome.
Right. So, but how many hours in that typical job then? I guess it can easily spend 30, 40, 50 man hours or more. It just depends on the job, don't it?
Especially if it's fuel injected, with custom mil spec engine harness and all that stuff. Easily exceed 100 hours engine harness and chassis combined.
Wow. And I mean, you're not just putting an EFI computer on there. You're installing a grid box. You're installing suspension travel sensors. You're wiring up every damn thing. It looks like some of these cars are probably. I saw Cal Hayward's car, Pinky, from Drag Week. Yeah. So it looks like you did all the work on that car. It figures because I saw it at Drag Week how clean that thing was. That thing's mopped up a couple of years now at Drag Week. In small block power adder, busting off mid 70s and driving down the road like it's nothing. Never opening the hood.
That car definitely. I had that car more than 3 weeks. Cal was great to work with, and it just kind of did what we had to do, and so far so good. I mean,
I saw it's got one of the big Pro EFI boxes in it too. There's lots of wires coming out of that guy.
Lots of Pro EFI wires coming out of that guy. There's lots of everything in Cal's car. His car is loaded.
Right. Moves out, runs in the lower mid sevens, 740s. I think is in Drag Week trim is what that car is capable of.
Yeah, it's down there.
Yeah,
he drives it all over the place.
Yeah,
that's insane.
You can tell Jake Miller's getting ready to wire his car. He's got all kinds of good questions lining up for you. This is funny. Yeah, we'll get to these in a minute.
When I can.
No, we'll get it to him in a minute. It's just he's asking for basic planning stuff. Makes sense.
Yeah, the basic the planning stuff. Job planning is the most important part of this. You can't do anything unless you start with a list of everything. All your engine sensors, all the chassis components, all your pumps, fans.
Start off with a spreadsheet then?
All that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Spreadsheet. Then it goes on to my whiteboard, my dry erase board that I have hanging. I have a few of them up in my shop. Yeah. And that way nothing gets overlooked,
Yeah.
A lot to it. You know that.
Oh, no, I understand. So he's asking advice on layout, do's and don'ts, aftermarket ECUs, and RaceWire. What advice on starting on wiring layout of aftermarket ECU? I guess he asked it twice. That's Jake, the guy that was in Alaska over New Year's. We talked with him. He's pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, Jake. Honestly, keep them separate. Go over your engine management. Do each pin and do your IO report, input-output report. See what sensors you're going to use and maybe what you're going to add later. I can't stress that enough.
Leaving room for extra stuff.
Satisfied.
No,
Yes.
So do you make wire runs with extra circuits in them, just not used?
Absolutely, yeah. Especially the firewall connectors, the mil specs. I'll run a couple spares out with 12 volt, 5 volt sensor ground, all that, so we can add later extra inputs and maybe an output or two.
Gotcha.
Just so you have it for later, because once you think you have everything, you don't.
Right. Yeah. And it sucks to cut into a nice harness and have to add like another temp sensor. You added a fluid temp or something, right? I mean, so I get that. So do you just fold these things over? What wire do you use? Are you big into like any special kind of wire? I mean, do you go with the minimum gauge? And I know a lot of guys go with a lot thicker than they need to for no reason. Do you, what drives that? Are you looking at amp draw for each circuit or?
I am. Yeah, I use the wire charts, wire gauging charts. So all the signal wires, I don't step below, like the thinnest I like to go is 18. Anything like 20 and 26. For me, it's hard to work with.
Right.
And just reliability with the thin wire. So 18 or data cable is really good for all your signal and sensors. And pumps and fans, absolutely. You have to gauge it accordingly to have full reliability.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Huh. Cool. Oh, we'll keep those questions
Yeah.
coming. So typically, you busy all the time? I'm guessing it looks like there's stuff lined up. How far out do you have to schedule people? How does that work? Do you ever bring in help or assistance or anything like that? Do you go to the track with people? That kind of stuff.
Yes, I'm fortunate enough that Cecil County Drago Way is an hour and 15 minutes from my shop. That's initially where I got my start. A lot of the outlaw cars that were running there, Ultra X, all that stuff. Yeah, I'm there a lot. I go to Georgia. Customer needs me to go out to the track. Usually when I'm done with the car, I try to get out to their dyno day or shaking the car down just in case they want to change anything around. Things of that nature.
Nice.
Going to the track is basically how you started it, because what I remember was like a couple of guys ended up being at Cecil on a weekend, or ended up at Yellow Bullet, and you ended up rewiring stuff like in the pits at the track and got them going again. Because it was Yellow Bullet, like one of the years of Yellow Bullet, you ended up redoing everything that they had right there at the track. Yeah, I generally try to stray away from doing that, but like a race like Yellow Bullet, we'll go above and beyond.
I get roped into that every time if I go to. I don't do Yellow Bullet. I haven't done Yellow Bullet yet. I've got to, but I did all the Ducks races, and it's always I just bring my oscilloscope anyway, because like guys are like, okay, I got some weird ass ignition miss. We tried to fix it twice. Get Clark and his stupid oscilloscope over here or whatever. And I end up doing like 5 or 6 of those emergency doctor visits or whatever. But I know how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's usually how it goes. And I mean, I have a helper that comes in and helps me out. His name is Will. He helps me out in the evenings and stuff. But for the most part, it's just me. So it's hard to get around to everything, but we try.
Right. I think it is you, Bewley, making the noise. There's somebody just banging on their keyboard in the background there.
I couldn't have been me. I had it muted.
Yeah. Oh, he's got it lit up. Muted. I don't think the mute's working.
Then I'll have to fix that. But I had the
I
damn
can tell
thing
that you can tell because of
before.
Fingers. Each one of them pieces of sausage weighs 3/4 of a pound, banging away on that keyboard. Bang, 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 bang.
I'm watching this thing light up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
My ass.
Hey, now we got people with their kids listening. Be polite. I'm just teasing.
Well,
I'm giving you a time
for the sausage comment. Yeah,
I'm teasing. The guy's 7 feet tall. Give him a break, man. He's Andre the Giant. So anyway,
and Troy's taller than I am.
Damn, 7'1".
Yeah, Troy's got me. Troy's got me about a couple of inches. He's just skinnier than me.
Hilarious.
Bunch of Sasquatches up.
Yeah. Right.
And he's nowhere near as good looking.
Get that. See, here he goes with that shit again. This is how it all starts. This is exactly what I'm talking about.
It's going straight downhill from here. You may want to tell your younger age children under 17 to go to bed.
It's time to put the ladies and the kids to bed.
Gosh, I can't get anything done with this guy.
How tall are you, John?
I'm 6 foot.
Oh, I didn't know they stack shit that high.
Yeah. Well, you look in the mirror and you figured that out already.
He just saw Full Metal Jacket for the first time.
Zing.
So he watched a movie about the real military?
Oh, here we go.
About the real branches of the military?
Now we've completely gone off the rails here.
Don't start no shit, won't be no shit.
So,
that's the way that goes.
All right, here's some questions. I got one for Troy. This is my own curiosity. Do you get many post-accident cars like pro mods that have been run into the wall or anything like that, or caught on fire or anything like that? Do you have any jobs that are like repair jobs?
Honestly, they're minimal. Yeah, most of my stuff is complete start to scratch. I take on minimal repair and minimal add-on stuff.
Got it.
Because you know as well as I do, I'm
working on somebody else's stuff sucks. Yes.
Yep. Now, Troy from RaceWires wired my car and nothing works.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't have that. I don't operate like that. So.
Yeah. No, and if you've got enough work backed up that you don't have to take on those gigs, then that's going to be a good thing.
I mean, that don't mean I'll install a grid at the track, or if somebody hand at the track, but a disclaimer comes with that.
Right. This is going in with wire nuts and electrical tape tonight, baby.
Well, no, we're professional. We use captain tape instead of the electrical tape. That's the only difference.
Wow, the airplane stuff, cool.
Yeah, you've got the airplane stuff around the wire nuts, and now you're professional.
Understood. I'm actually not the best. Difference. I mean, I'm okay. I make it work, but my wiring's not as pretty. Brad Nagel is the other wiring guy. In fact, he's over at Cal Automotive right now, finishing up their car that's going up to the Detroit Autorama this weekend.
Very nice.
Yeah. No, those guys. I mean, I worked on that. That was a Riddler winning car in 2013. So I mean, I've got a little bit of time on something like that, but that was even slower pace. Take your time and make it 7 times if you have to make it right. You had those kind of limitations because the budget was, big on that car. But,
absolutely.
Yeah. So those guys allocate time for it to take 3 or 4 tries to get right. So, you don't look stupid, but you try to do that on the jobs like you're doing. I just can't hang. That's not me. I can't do that as well. But I am the electronics tuning guy. Knows what's going on in front of the flywheel spinning around, but that's about it.
Well, you're the guys that like the tuners I like to get with before I start the car.
Yeah.
Before I start the job. That way, because, I'll get with a guy like yourself, Scott, and I'll say, hey, what all do you want inside this car? Give me the down low. And
don't act like you were going to cuss me out as soon as we hang up the phone either. That son of a bitch. I don't do any work.
I'm going to call Bewley. Bewley's getting it right away. Late night beauty.
I get shit from the wiring guys all the time. Nagel was giving me a hard time the other night. He's like, well, I'm over here doing real work. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Pick a different vocation, son. No, I love him. But anyway.
I don't reinvent the wheel. There's a ton of great wiring guys all over doing a great job. I feel anybody really do it if you just, it's like anything else. Take your time and plan accordingly.
Yeah. What I've noticed about your wiring, though, is no fancy concentric twist stuff that's impossible for the next guy to figure out. Everything seems like it's labeled and easy to figure out. Like I could go to work on any of this stuff and understand what's going on just from the pictures. Like visibly, I can see how everything's laid out, your relay boards, how you're doing everything. So it looks serviceable to me. So did you have a background before you did this in something? I mean, I usually see this kind of work straight from guys that who worked at Caterpillar and did wire harnesses or something like that. You know what I mean? I'm just curious. What was your background before you got into this?
Yeah, that's a funny story. I've mostly construction my whole life.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. Plumbing, laying block. The plumbing really taught me runs, making nice, clean runs and stuff, but no electrical background. I, years and years ago, Yellow Bullet was my training ground.
Not a bad place to start. Nope.
Yeah, the tech threads on there. You could find out anything and anything from some of the best guys in the industry.
Oh yeah. So 10, 12, 14 years ago, the Yellow Bullet used to be. I mean, it still is kind of in private messaging a little bit, but man, it did used to be the center of really successful and smart guys that would share some of that info.
Yes.
Back before everybody before everybody was getting ass-holed to death and just got burnt out on it, which happened to me this last couple of weeks. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, Bewley and I we used to hang out in the chat room all the time. Hours of like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night till 2 a.m.
Do I want to know what the theme was on that chat? Probably not, but
each night it would be different,
Right.
There's no telling what the topic was going to be on that. I mean, it could be about anything. Does that still even go on? I haven't even tried to log on to it in so long.
Yeah, it kind of died out, and the timing was right. My kids were younger, so I was late at night at home, hang out on there. Now I just work. So boring.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. Not a great cars to work all this stuff, but it's still wiring. It's still boring, right?
Yeah, but here's the thing about it though, Troy, and this is where I'm at with it. A bad day peddling car parts is still better than a good day at what we used to do.
Yep, same
Absolutely,
here.
boss. Yep.
So, we've been blessed with, the ability to turn, what we enjoy doing into what, pays the bills and keeps the roof over the wife and the family's head now. So
I liked what I used to do, but it was a lot more stress across the board. So this job, if I'm willing to put in a ton of stress and work, it's more rewarding. So I didn't realize at my last job that you have to put a price on job satisfaction, and it's a big price.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I still love what I'm doing. Right. I'm with you.
I'd rather make less money and do what I love than
whore yourself out to the man. Yep, exactly. And make somebody else super wealthy, Yeah.
I still think you're crazier than hell. Personally. Because
who's this guy talking to?
I'm talking to you. You big overgrown need to take some bartender training.
Listen, bro. There's 7 guys in here and my name is on the freaking screen, bro. It says Troy Baum. So when you start talking, if you could say, "Hey, Troy, I have a question for you," that would be amazing, little John.
I think he'd prefer to say, "Hey, shithead."
Yeah, you have been spoken to.
I've been spoken to. You ain't seen nothing yet.
Nice.
You ain't seen. By the way, Tom, it was nice getting to meet you today.
Yeah, I heard you guys got to meet up in Bardstown there. Mr. Viggy was up visiting the Thule Corporation there. That's kind of cool.
You never know where I pop in and pop out of.
That's what I told John. I was like, I gave him a good endorsement, man. Now I want my $50, you bastard. No.
Yeah, I don't know if you're still in town or not, but if you're still in town, come back over to my place tomorrow and sit around and BS with me a little while. And before
I wish I could, but I'm actually back here in North Carolina. I just landed and ran to a place to plug in my phone so I could join and listen in.
What airport do you fly into? Are you flying to Charlotte?
Yes.
Oh my God! I spent 20 hours in hell. I should have called you. I'm so stupid.
You should have.
You were close.
20 minutes away.
Oh, I thought Eric might be close, but I didn't want to bug him. But man, because God, that place is under construction. It's the worst place on the planet right now.
Yeah.
There's
so what did you do to pass your time, Scott?
I sat there and listened to them make announcements that'd just be 20 more minutes for like 9 hours.
That's a whole other show.
Yeah. Right. No.
I found this hole in the men's bathroom in the stall wall.
No. It's funny you joke about that because I'm pretty sure there's raw sewage dripping out by the B doors at the gate at the baggage claim. But because they got stuff rerouted because they're doing construction. Man, I was super bad mood because I sat and waited for a shuttle at the wrong place that never showed up for like an hour. I didn't get to the hotel. American Airlines put me up in a hotel because there was weather delays, but also our plane had a mechanical delay. And they put me up at that Clarion, which this is disgusting. But the only place to get, I was starving too. I hadn't eaten like since breakfast, and I'm fat anyway, but whatever. I was hungry. So not starving, hungry. So I didn't even want to say I got a ribeye that was actually pretty good, but the only place that was open was a quote unquote gentleman's club, like across the street or whatever from the airport. I mean, it's not the nicest part of town, and I had them bring it to the door or whatever. But it was just kind of funny because I had a ribeye at midnight. It was good, ended up being good, but I was just a crappy mood.
Let me see. Gentleman's club and bring it to the door.
Yeah, I didn't want to go into the strip club because it was a pretty sketchy. I don't know if. The guy at the hotel is like, now listen, the only place that's open.
That is the best kind of strip club.
It probably is. It was called the Bankers Club or something. It's actually supposedly like a high-end place. It's like they got good food there, but it's also a strip club. I'm like, I don't want to go to the strip club. But so I got a to-go order. But I walked across the parking lot, and it was good. Went back to the hotel room and crashed and had to get up at like 5 the next morning for a 7 a.m. flight and just crappy mood. And then it was long waiting there again, another delay, and finally got home in Omaha at noon. And then you know how that is. And I'm a day late and everybody's banging on your door and I was supposed to tune a bunch of cars remotely and and then I had a tax appointment last night. That was always pleasant. That's the other reason I'm in a crappy mood. And to write some checks last night. But anyway, we good. Moving on. Back to Troy. We got derailed.
You guys are entertaining. I love it.
We travel a lot. All of us travel a lot. I mean, Scott Evans is all over the damn country. Delgado's over in Iraqistan or wherever the hell he's at right now. Where is he at? He's at Bahrain right now, isn't he? He's gonna watch Andy Frost and those guys with Tecklenburg and all them. Anyway, but yeah, that's so.
I drove through. I drove through.
He's
Iowa
over there
once.
eating at McDonald's with words he can't understand, but loosely translate to crab.
Crab. I saw that. That was pretty funny. He's like, "What's this translation for this? Crab poop." Oh, he's like, "Well, it tastes okay." But anyway, so wait, we had some questions here coming up now. So hold on. Oh man, I gotta scroll back now.
Troy, how do you handle dirty ground? And do you use VR sensors? If so, do you use shielded wire exclusively?
Dirty ground.
Well,
that's a term that gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah, and it's probably a term for my guy watching my webinar. I talk about clean and dirty grounds. I purposely group the high current stuff together with the low current, aside from the low current devices, and I call the big current stuff the dirty grounds. But he's probably just curious.
It shouldn't be tied together with EFI to get tied together like people put on their headlights with the EFI system.
I just saw you lecturing somebody about that today. Go ahead. Carry on.
No, you're exactly right. I no need to get real technical. The grounds are easy, honestly, if you just stick to a couple rules. Make sure everything goes back to the battery. On every car, you run a 2-gauge welding cable up front for the power from the kill switch. Run a 2-gauge ground wire along with that up front to a post. From that post, it'll go to the engine block. The engine block, you'll go to each head. And then in the back of the car, you could go to the chassis. And that's it. Sensor ground, stay with the ECU. You don't mix your sensor ground with your water pump ground. You keep it stupid simple. And normally, I've knock on wood, but every car I've done, I've stacked 2-gauge welding cable on top of supposedly finicky electronics, and knock on wood, but no problems.
No, and you know what? That's funny you say that. I do a webinar thing where I talk about wiring, and I basically am telling people to do the same thing, to consider the routing back to the battery. Not the physical routing, but the, big fat wire go right to the battery. Don't, rely on the chassis for the grounds. And it's just kind of interesting. I've never had proximity noise issues either. No. You can run wires right next to each other. That's kind of an old school ignition system solid core wires thing.
Sure.
Yeah, but otherwise no other problems. Yeah, that's interesting. None of your customers have ever called me for noise help either, so that's awesome. Listen to this guy's advice.
That's great. And then, from that same post, it's very important that all your pump grounds, all your fan grounds, all your lights, all your grounds go to that ground post and not to the chassis. I think you introduce dirty when you start mixing it up, but if you keep it all clean and everything to the same spot, you're usually good.
Star grounds. Yeah, well, it doesn't create any ground loops that way.
Right.
Don't have multiple paths for the same device to get back to the battery negative. You know what I mean? Single path.
One thing he mentioned that I think a lot of people overlook is the ground to each cylinder head. And it becomes important because you don't know that you have a good solid ground there, depending on what gasket you have and
right.
What else is going on with it. It could be very, very dirty, and it could be a partial halfway ground. And people take a ground to the block. That's great. But, you got silicone on things like the intake. People take it to their intake and then they forget that it's not attached anywhere because it's got gasket in between it and the heads. So you definitely putting grounds on the cylinder heads is one of the smarter things you can do, and most people don't realize that.
Absolutely. Especially with the individual coils, the coil near plugs, that's real popular these days. Those grounds have to go to each head. It's imperative.
Talking about grounds, are those braided straps? Are those not worth a crap?
I would say, if you have them, they'll work. But usually it's not convenient. If you're working with welding cable and you go from your post to the block, you're not going to run ground strap from your block up to each head, or, from the post to the block. Normally it'll be welding cable.
Right.
And I mostly use GXL. I don't get into a lot of fancy mil spec wiring. Some jobs I do, but honestly, I can't see a big difference other than workability, maybe.
The mil spec stuff is mostly for when you have a situation that's high temperature, high humidity, or drastic climate changes. It's designed for things like airplanes that go from ground level to 30,000 feet and have massive swings in temperature and humidity immediately that can cause problems with a weaker wire, that can cause it to, the vibrations that happen don't seem like they're very big, but when you have drastic changes in temperature and humidity at the same time, can make it really weak and can break. And that's something they don't want in a flying airplane. So that's kind of why there's a military spec wire. It's at normal race car stuff, most of the time you're probably not going to need it. It's not a bad thing to use, but it's not something that you have to worry too much about for that reason.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. Yeah, I try to keep it simple, like I said, so I don't overcomplicate things, and I've been having great success with, standard GXL or TXL, a lot of TXL thinner sheeting. Flexibility, the workability, the cost, when you add and everything up, I try to keep it real for these guys. I try not to bankrupt them,
Is there a particular ground wire diameter standard that you like to use?
Ground wire diameter standard. Yes. Generally 2 gauge from the back of the car. If you're doing a 15-foot, 20-foot run, which most of these cars are, 2 gauge has to be the standard, I would say.
Or the minimum.
The minimum.
Yeah, I would say the minimum.
Yeah.
You wouldn't.
I like to run a single-aught welding wire, even 2-aught welding cable. Wire.
Yeah.
My ground.
To my block ground anyway, or my main stud, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 2-aught, that's a little big. I guess it all depends on the... I like to add up everything that's in the car.
If you're drawing 200 amps worth of current, though, it's not necessarily too big.
Yeah.
Right.
And so really, I think the message is to kind of calculate your amp load and realize that those grounds have to return everything that the power side has to, it's kind of like feed and returns on the fuel system, or even more so. So you want to make sure you got enough.
I always tell everybody, go one step bigger on your ground than you do on your hot wire. It pretty much guarantees you're safe and covered.
That's not bad advice at all.
So, Ruby,
you can narrow that down then, like from post up front to your engine block. Like I'll go to a firewall feed, and then it'll be a 2-foot run. It'll be 4 gauge. Just to save a little weight when we can. So these guys get pretty crazy with the weight, but
that's where I was going with the questioning. Yeah, what's a total wiring package weigh when you're done wiring a car?
I have no idea. I never took it completely out when I was done and weighed it, so I don't know.
I had about 40 pounds worth of wiring that I had just sitting loose before I even started, and then I added on top of it.
Right. It adds up quick. Is the mil spec wiring a little lighter? Is that in comparison?
Yeah, generally
for
it
lightweight?
is. It is.
It is, right? Yeah.
And there isn't actually general mil spec, isn't it, by contract? So like it's whatever the specification was in the contract. That was my understanding. Nobody's like is like either mil spec or not. No, it might be a wire that falls under a certain military specification, but mil spec for an A1 tank might not be the same as it is for a armored personnel carrier or something like that. You know what I mean? It's spec'd by contract or by bid.
But generally, when they talk about mil spec, usually, you're talking about, if you're talking about connectors, everybody's kind of familiar with it. It's kind of a generic term just thrown around, just like NOS or whatever. Yeah, I know. Exactly.
I hate that term too. Sorry, carry on.
Most people refer to like the aviation side of things. So there's a bunch of different types that are out there, but generally, it's like what Scott said. It's kind of like when you hear people talk about like, oh, I have aircraft grade hardware. to hold something down. That's kind of a joke because
if you're an A&P mechanic, you snicker at that comment. You're like,
just
well, what
means
the hell
it's got a hole
mean?
drilled in it and wire holding it from spinning.
Right.
Yeah, well, like
safety
aircraft grade hardware, when you look at aircraft panels, they're secured with 10 million bolts, so they don't have to be that strong because you got 1,000 of them holding that panel down. So it's kind of a joke. Yeah. But mil spec, take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, in conversation, people can relate to it, as opposed if you say Teflon wire.
Right. Yeah. Like nobody knows what Kapton wiring is.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about like copper versus aluminum wire?
Yeah, the Schroeder guy is asking.
That's not.
Yeah. About aluminum wire.
Aluminum
I don't know.
wire.
A lot of people who don't understand.
I stay completely away from it. Because general rule of thumb is you have to double the size anyway to carry the same load as copper. So if you're doubling the size, you're saving a little weight, but it's not as good. I don't feel it's as good. So I stay completely away from aluminum.
Interesting.
Can you talk about, so not all gauges are created equal. When you're talking about, especially up in the big wires and battery cable sizes, the difference between like fine strand wiring and just some normal, I don't know what you would call it, coarse strand, I guess.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah. Yep.
What's the advantage there for the fine strand other than it's more flexible, and why is it better?
There's more strands usually. Those are like 16 or 17. I haven't counted. If you take fine strand and then the more coarser strand, for lack of a better word, and compare them, you'll see the fine strand has more strands and it crimps nicer. I crimp everything. I don't solder anything.
Thank you. I preach that too. I know we have agreed on that before we even met each other. I just followed you around the internet and I've seen your posts and I'm like, man, I fight people with that too, dude. They're like, oh, you're just not soldering it correctly. I'm like, no, you're just not maintaining the car for the next 2 race seasons.
I don't fight with them. I just fix all their mistakes.
Oh God.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure
there are places to solder, but at a connector is always better.
A circuit board is a great place to solder. If you're making your own ECU, Megasquirt style, cool. But the wires themselves, you don't care about the slight, almost not measurable resistance in a crimp versus the mechanical secureness of the crimp, good mechanical crimp. But anyway.
Well, I mean, if you're getting into that technical, approach, our approach out here, I try to do everything obviously the best we can, but at the same time, it's real world working. So we got to get it in, get it done and out. So time wise alone, I couldn't imagine trying to solder a whole car. I couldn't even fathom the idea. I would hate life.
Yes. Agree. Understood. Totally agree with that. Yeah. Even if you've got a method for doing it quick, it's just not, I know there's so many guys that argue that for the soldering stuff. I'm like, no, I get it in the car stereo world. I totally get it, but not in this
damage
stuff.
The material.
If you're really paranoid, you can crimp it and then solder.
Yeah, but then I think you just doubly fucked it up and you wasted twice as much time.
Yeah. It's a pain if you have to do a change, but if you're really, really paranoid, that's the 100% secure method that it's not coming off. It means you're going to have to cut it off in a pinch.
Yeah. Or it's going to break the copper. It's going to work harden at the end of the solder, which is what it does after a certain number of hours at a certain vibration. That's just the part that I gripe about. And then what sucks is it'll pass a continuity test. No, it'll pass a continuity test. So you can't find it troubleshooting, not quickly, but it won't pass a load test as well, or maybe won't. You know what I mean? But it'll damn sure cause an ignition misfire at, halfway down the track. That's hard to chase. And everybody's pissed about.
Fine thread wire versus coarse thread wire is basically, you need to look at how much amperage it's drawing. The finer thread wire is typically, not always, but typically made for a lower amperage draw than a coarse thread. But if you have enough of the fine thread, it will do just as good as a coarse thread or a solid core.
That's pretty awesome.
That's way ahead of me. You have to look at the density.
That's way over my head. I haven't studied it enough, the craft, that to understand that kind of stuff. But we need to get Mitch Minton on here too. He's been to one of my classes, and he's also into all that stuff.
Yeah, in general, it's finer thread for low voltage and amperage use, and thicker thread for low to medium voltage but higher amperage use. And everything kind of in car world is basically considered low voltage because it's 12 volts, 16 volts, not really considered high voltage. So really either works, but the more amperage draw you have, often the thicker wire is better for high amperage draws. We don't really have either most of the time, other than the starter. That's kind of the only thing that's really high amperage. Everything else in general is 30 amps or less is still kind of low amperage on the scale of our race cars. The starter could draw more than that while cranking, and that's where you need the thicker wire because it builds up heat faster. So the thicker wire resists the heat, which melts it, where the thinner wire, finer wire, isn't as good at heat resistance.
Sorry, Ryan Milliken's on our chat showing his new pictures of what he's building right now. We're probably not allowed to talk about that, but I was busy typing nice to him. Sorry, carry on. Everybody's looking at that picture. Yeah. So anyway, next question. What? Okay. This is a Mitch Minton question. He's always creative. Here's a good question. The small amount of insulation that you strip for a crimp, have you found a good way to contain these directly to the trash? I know I have that same dilemma when I'm making a harness or whatever. I'll be like slipping all over the floor on all the little 1/8 inch and trimmings of the insulation. What the hell how do you manage that? Do you just run a vacuum over the shop floor? I noticed you have nice floors in your shop.
I do. Yeah, we keep the shop relatively clean times. Can vacuum. I don't have a stripper saver.
Keep a small trash can handy.
Right.
No, I don't even do that. I let it fly unless I'm working open. The turbos are open. If it's a carb car and the carbs, you got to be careful where those.
Yep, tape that stuff off. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I'll put my hand around it and I'll catch it. I use like old Snap-on strippers that I have that just clip it, and when you let go, it releases. Catch it if I'm an engine or something.
Right.
Man, do I like strippers?
Of course, we know this.
They're amazing. Billy loves strippers too.
Hey, why you gotta tell everything you know?
Huh? Come on, man.
Edit at 8:53.
That's what friends do. They show off each other.
Scott's the one that lives in the city for strippers. I mean, he's the Vegas resident these days.
He just ate there yesterday or whatever.
No, he's talking about Evans. He's talking about Evans.
The other Scott.
Yeah. No, it's funny. Mark, we're kind of coming. We might be coming out to Vegas this weekend through like Wednesday. I'll let you know offline here, Scott. We'll know like tomorrow. But
copy.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll be in town. We might be taking a trip, but
this weekend to be good.
Yeah.
2-for-1 specials at the Spearmint Rhino.
There's a restaurant there I can highly recommend, thanks to Scott.
Right?
Oh, God. Here we go with this story.
Yeah, I hear it's really delicious.
Scott's been served food by Gordon Ramsay. I said that with my pinky out.
Oh, of course. You have to.
Yeah, it's bitching, though. It's pretty cool. What else we got? Fire away with some more questions. Oh, I mean, I guess my questions are, do you have a standard set of connectors you like to use? It looks like I saw a lot of Deutsch DT series stuff. 4, 6, 8 pins. And so that's my go-to. Stuff. That's my go-to for when I'm making a harness and bulkheads and everything else. What are your thoughts on that?
Same. Yeah, Deutsch DT, Amphenol AT.
Yep, I've used the AT series a lot. It's the same thing. They intermingle with each other.
Yes, sir. Yeah, they're not only are they more aesthetically pleasing than like the traditional weather pack, but I think they secure the wires better. If you take a weather pack and you're in a hurry and push them together, the pin can slide off the side without you realizing it. It'll still connect. It'll still connect. I'm sure you've seen it a million times.
I'm not a fan of weather packs, and they only are good for like 50 inserts and removals, where these DT series, you can take the connector apart super easy. A monkey can do it and not screw it up. That's what I like about them. Is putting them together, you can do them fast. They're numbered easily, visibly well, and I use the pins that have the 4 stakes that squeeze together or whatever. It's not the ones with the what is it? The steel pins. I remember Brad. I forget what he called them, but he makes sure I use those.
You're using the closed barrel. Closed barrel
Yes.
is 8 indents, 2 on each side. They're real small indentations. That's the best method, I feel.
Dude, a monkey can do that and not screw it up and get the insulation cut the right length and everything. That's just the reason I liked them. And yeah, I mean, it's the same stuff that Caterpillar has used for years. But I mean, it looks nice. It's the gray connectors with the orange little clips in them. But you can see
they're
them all over the
aesthetically
pictures.
pleasing.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can work around them without cutting your hands up. Weather pack have all kinds of like rough edges.
Yeah.
So if you're in an area where there's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Deutsch connectors, that's the bomb right there.
That's the preference. Okay. And then what are you doing? Do you prefer to do like a shrink wrap over the whole length of a harness? Then is that what I'm seeing? And is that like, do you use the DR25? I see sometimes you use the boots when you use the aluminized or metal bulkhead connectors. What's the story on that stuff?
Yeah. So basically I use a lot of like clean cut loom. Sometimes I'll use the shrink tube, but most times I just use a regular loom to shrink tube the ends. Fast, affordable, it gets the job done.
Looks great. Yeah.
It looks awesome.
Generic snake skin kind of stuff, the weaver stuff, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's actually called clean cut, and it looks a lot nicer than traditional.
It's not like the plasticky, super plasticky one that leaves a bunch of frayed ends.
Yeah, we don't want the plastic one. Yeah.
Yeah, this stays flexible, so you could twist it and bend it. And
do you get that stuff in rolls, just like the other sleeve?
Yeah, just buy it in spools, 500-foot spools.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and just go to town. Nothing.
Tech Flex stuff, right?
Tech Flex, that's nice stuff, yeah.
Well, that's who makes the clean cut is Tech Flex.
You got it. Yeah, Wire Care.
Scott's Googling this stuff right now. He's on it.
Wirecare.com.
Wirecare.com. That's the best. That's the best place to get a lot of.
Nice.
The high level stuff from, like companies like RaceSpec.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the best of the best there. I mean,
here's a good question. So Cameron Thorpe is asking, is there a good place to get connectors for factory sensors? And I know Brad's recently going through this for the Mopar stuff because he's doing a show car that's got a Hellcat crate motor in it. But he wants to he doesn't want to cut the old ones off and try to do any of that crap. He wants it to look nice. It's a show car. Actually, I say that they're actually talking about like taking it on, is it Drag Week or an Optimus Channel? They're going to do some kind of, they're going to do the Silver State Classic race with it. They're building a customer's car to do that. I shouldn't say it's a really nice looking car that they're actually going to try to race at the Silver State later this year. Anyway, and he's struggling with, it's easy to find the Metropack stuff, GM connectors to build your own custom harness, but so he's having issues pissing and moaning. I mean, I think he found it all, but the Chrysler stuff was hard to get, and I'm told the Ford stuff for Coyotes especially is really hard to get the connectors for. What is the story? Is that something you can talk about? Or?
I can, but very little, because I have the same problems as everybody else. You find one here from this manufacturer, you find the pins here, you find the connector there. The dealership they don't have no idea what you're talking about.
Right.
They want to sell you a pigtail.
A lot of this stuff can be found. Now, I don't know for the Mopar, a lot of the GM stuff pretty much could all be found Mouser or DigiKey. I'm sure that a lot of that other stuff can for Ford. The problem becomes finding which connector they actually used and what it's called. Like, because they don't stamp it with the part number.
I think Brad spent about 4 days trying to find it, and Mouser didn't have anything, and DigiKey didn't have anything. I mean, it's the Hemi stuff is
he was
difficult.
Pissed. He was having to burn through some hours. He's probably listening tonight. I don't think he's logged in. He's working on it tonight right now. But he's just like, God, it burned through a ton of time. He was pissed.
I'm watching the photos go by.
Yeah.
And the one thing we haven't talked about are the custom buttons and switch panels that you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, the switch panels.
There's a switch panel photo that just popped up right now.
Yeah. Now, we change topics a lot, too, real quick. Troy, it'll keep you on your feet. But we're already an hour into it, man. We're halfway done. So,
would you look at
or when he passes out. But carry on. So, switches.
That switch panel that's right there now, that's it. I think that's in Pinky. I think we put that in the drag week car.
Right.
That is one of Brian Black's deal. He makes some of the nicest switch panels. I feel if you're not ordering, it's a full billet mount and everything. RaceWire Solutions is his company. Often confused with mine because I use his product sometimes, mainly his switch panels. But they're awesome. Full billet, easy to work with.
We'll need to get him on sometime. Man, we could have done that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're ballsy, I can call him on the phone if you know his number. Text it up in the thing. I'll call him. But yeah, anyway, so that's
I support the guys that
I know it. I might be able to send you.
Yeah, go ahead. We'll get him on the phone. So
Brian does a great job.
Got it. Okay. So what? Here, somebody says, where do you recommend getting? Here was that word again. Mil spec style cannon plugs. What vendor or do you sell some of that stuff? The guy from Magic Valley Hot Rods is asking.
Yeah, I may get into retail, but I didn't know if I lost that road because, like I said, I'm one guy, so it's hard for me to take on all these extra.
If you're going to do it, you got to commit to that one. Yep.
You got to commit. It's got to be done right, or I'll do it. So it's one of those things. But vendors for those connectors, they could be a little tricky because each car is kind of different. When you do your layout, you'll find out how many pins you need. Do you need a 41 pin? Do you need all 18 to 22 gauge pins and then some 16 gauge pins for ejectors and stuff like that? So you figure them all out. And then, Google it, Race Spec, a couple of those websites out there that they sell those types of circular firewall connectors known as the mil spec.
They got them in different prices, I guess. Because I know that like WeatherPack actually made some cheap ones that were surprisingly inexpensive, and they worked okay, but they weren't race cars type stuff like what you would do.
Yeah, I stick to the metal ones, and surprisingly, if you know the pin count, you can find a lot of it on eBay. If you know what you're searching for.
Right, and you're getting the right stuff, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I stay away from like the plastic ones. I think Deutsch actually makes a few, mil spec style, but really it's just a removable firewall connector,
right,
basically.
Right. Now I've seen the Deutsch stuff was probably my favorite. That was probably the entry level for me or whatever. I was like, all right, I'll use this on a nice project. I've got it on a land speed car and they work good. Using the DT and mixing it with some Amphenol AT series.
Yeah. Yep. Real nice stuff.
I like it. It's not expensive.
Corsair. The brand, the metal stuff, Corsair. I think they make some of the nicest connectors out there.
Got it. Make note, guys. Corsair. Corsair. Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only mil spec style firewall connector I use.
When you're using those mil specs, like, is there a size limit, like gauge limit, to what you can actually put in those? Because every one of them I've ever seen, it's usually generally a pretty small wire coming in and out of there. Is there a current? Like, is there a limitation of what the components you try to run through there?
Yeah, absolutely. You could get them mixed up, with 18 to 22 gauge and then some 16 gauge, like certain injectors, depending on the injectors. The ID2000, stuff like that, you don't really need big stuff, but, generally 18 gauge, honestly. Most of it all sensor stuff, 18 to 22. High current, you want to keep out. Those pins they're not rated for, I think, what are they? Not even maybe 10 amps, if that.
Right.
Not even. So you want to limit it to that, which you'll know that after you do your initial layout. Once you do your pre-planning, you'll know what you need at that point. And then it's homework time. I mean, that's a lot of the time, pre-planning, rounding up all the parts. I mean, that's hours right there.
Right.
Before you even pick up one wire, you know.
When if the high current stuff, when you're running that stuff through the firewall, do you have a brand's preference for the grommets that you're using? Your stuff looks killer, so I'm assuming there's something that you reach for when you go for that.
Yeah, I'm like a grommet junkie. I've used so much stuff. I've bought stuff that I don't even, just to try it and not use, but what are they? They're a real nice big grommet. I don't even know the brand. I buy them from some hot rod shop out in California by the bulk, but they're similar to a painless grommet. I think it's painless. Let me look here. The brand painless.
James McEwen, are you on from Texas? One of the guys from Painless goes to my classes often, and he listens a lot. James McEwen, call me on the phone, dude, if you are.
Yeah, I think it's one of their grommets. I'm gonna look up here. Yeah. Yeah, it's a bigger painless grommet with the center punched out, but it's flexible, so you can get V-net. If you're race pack and you have to get your V-net cable, you could fit your V-net cable along with other wires. But then the hole closes, it's not a huge gaping hole in your firewall.
Right.
Lord knows we don't want no gapers. So
yeah, where'd Bewley go? I know he's hanging around.
I'm not even gonna dignify that with a response.
Gaping.
What are you guys talking about?
Tyler Titus, sorry, I catch his post. Delphi has some lower pin count, more budget-oriented bulkhead type connectors. Delphi HES. They are compatible with Deutsch HDP stuff too. Oh, cool. Good advice. Hopefully.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Hey, whole room of wiring pros in here. When you guys, when somebody's welding on a car, what are precautions for them to take?
I disconnect the battery and I disconnect the ECU because I have seen one that got fried from welding on the car.
I've seen 4 or 5 in the last probably 10 years that have gotten clearly damaged from welding. The traces get fried on them, but yeah, that's disconnect the ECU completely, disconnect the power and the ground at the battery. Just then that allows no current to flow through from one point to another, anything in the electronics. And honestly, I mean, if you want to pull the PCM out of the car,
most ECUs recommend that you don't have it physically touching the chassis in any way to begin with. So they want some kind of rubber grommet in between the box and the car.
So you don't get a huge current travel through the.
As long as you disconnect it.
Right. You don't want to have a bunch of current travel through the case of the ECU either. That can do damage.
That's like any grounds that are attached to the chassis. Basically, we disconnect all. And we pull all sensitive electronics from the car completely. Yeah. We don't even just unplug it. We remove it completely.
Right.
No matter what, it's always a good idea to easily removed before welding.
Yeah. Electronics, not good. A lot of weird stuff goes on. I mean, I remember seeing guys weld on a car, and he had the clamp somewhere else, but I remember like a brake line catching on fire at the other end of the car. Like, didn't even make sense. Why? I don't know, but just hilarious. Yeah, bad news. So be careful.
It's cool. I'm reading through some of the comments here. A lot of these guys.
Yeah, isn't that? I mean, you can see there's a lot going on there. People asking questions, trying to get the good one. Let's see. Ken White asked about wiring, brand, and place to purchase. So we'll rewind it about 10 minutes. Kenny talked all about that. You talked about going through the firewall. I think you caught up on that one. Anybody else here?
I saw one about sensors. What sensors we recommend. It's probably a lot of the same stuff you would recommend. Like, you have your basic engine stuff, air temp, TPS, water, oil, fuel pressure.
Yeah, I'd like to see temp and pressure on any fluid, anything that's got a fluid reservoir for sure.
That you
can get to.
Yeah, your wastegate.
I haven't ever done wastegate position sensors on anything.
I have not, Scott.
Yeah,
I have not.
I haven't either. I see people doing that every now. I saw Tecklenburg had done it a few times, but I have not
some of that
used them.
fancy Honda stuff there.
Well, yeah, I hear you, but I mean, I know that you can use a Ford EGR valve sensor, position sensor. It's literally just like a push in and out, straight line, linear thing. And I've seen somebody make a mod for that here recently that looked like it would be easy to do, and I think it would be handy to have. But usually, guys go for turbocharger speed before they go for wastegate position if we're adding stuff. You know how that goes?
Yeah, I'd much rather have the turbo speed, shaft speed.
Yeah. But anywho, that's what I run into.
Why is that? I'm just asking for everybody.
I don't know. I think it's a little more useful to have. Like you can, I mean, if most turbo manufacturers, you can tell if you're overspeeding it. You can get reports on that. You can kind of get an idea. You know, Bewley, you want to talk about turbo shaft speed at all? Any thoughts on that?
It's a reliability thing and it's an efficiency thing, you know, because most of these guys most of the time you can tell if you're getting, you know, based on shaft speed and fuel flow, you can see, you know, how efficient the compressors are working is one way of looking at it. You know, anytime you've got, you know, because then you can go back to the compressor map if you're running a unit that actually has a map made for it and see what you've got going on there. And then, you know, it's like Ryan was talking about last week, you can find out how far over the recommended the limit is that you're running the units, you know, and see what's going on. But you can literally create your own efficiency map for your turbocharger if you know shaft speed and the pressures and exhaust, you know, your EMAP pressures and stuff. You can map it out and you can figure out, you know, how much of your turbocharger you're actually being able to use.
Maximize everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can see if there's some changes that you can make to try and, you know, you can tell if you're not getting the mass flow out of the compressor that you think you ought to based on shaft speeds. And I mean, with enough data, you can tell if the cam is right for the motor based on, you know, shaft speeds and pressures and fuel consumption. And I mean, there's a lot that you can tell if you go so far as to have shaft. It's a real handy tool if somebody wants to go so far as to have them put in. It's you know, if you're in competition, it's a pretty, you know, it's a pretty useful piece of data. Because you can, you know, shaft speed will tell you if you need to open the gate and try and slow the turbo, you know, down a little bit, something like that.
Is there any other useful sensors that you guys have all the tuning experience?
Well, I know some cheap things that work pretty good, like those ride height sensors. Range Rover and GM both have, like, at auto parts stores, ride height sensors that work really good as $0 to $5,
$40.
Yeah, I mean, usually some of them don't travel as far as like an 8-inch travel sensor, but I mean, you can mechanically rig that real easy to work.
I use 2 of the Cadillac ride height sensors on my rear tires there for shock travel, and it moves plenty far enough for that. I think it's got about 6 inches worth of travel, and it moves just as far as my shock.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, those are some
they're
budget
like
saving
$30
tricks.
a piece on Summit Racing.
You got to realize most of our listeners we're the middle class budget racer type guys or whatever with street strip cars, whatever. So I mean, they like to understand. I mean, it beats nothing beats a nice linear potentiometer from MSD has a good one, but a Penny and Giles I believe is who makes that. But it's a British company. But
the only challenge with the stock vehicle sensors is that you have to come up with your own scaling. You know it's going to be 0 to 5 volts, but it means you have to do some measurements. So like the ride height sensors they move in an arc. They're like a TPS style sensor where they twist, you know, and they've got an arm coming off of.
That's when you need friends like Tom or Eric Yost who have a pull down rig. So you can literally just pull the car down to the different ride heights and measure both while you're at it, put it on the scales, and you figure out the actual.
I just took and put mine on a jack, on a car jack, and I set it down and I measured with the tape measure. Here's this height, measure it again. This voltage is this. Jack it up a little more.
Linearize
this voltage
between
is this.
them. Yeah.
And I just worked at it, you know, small increments, quarter inch at a time, half inch at a time, whatever it took to make the math make sense. it's close enough for what most of us are trying to do. We're not worrying about an eighth of an inch of travel. We're worried about an inch here or a half inch there difference. We're trying to make things make sense. We want to see when it bounces, not necessarily see how much it bounces. We can see that, it moved a lot. We don't need to know it moved a 1/16 of an inch.
Yeah, you can just take your springs out to calibrate the sensors.
Yeah.
And did you try that with power management as well?
I use it for my to tune the shocks at the track.
I'm mostly just catching data and reporting to the shock guy. That's typically what I've done with it. But most of the time, I'm not.
I look at the basketball effect.
Yeah,
I want to know, are my tires basketballing, or is my car bouncing going down the track? I'm trying to figure out what it takes to put the right amount of compression and rebound in it to control it properly. I'm looking for control. When it controls the best, I'm going to have the best ET.
Right.
Speaking of cheap sensors, those on the budget side of things can look at the website called Adafruit. There's a bunch of miscellaneous sensors that you can get.
Good. Yeah, for $35.
Their 0 to 5 volt accelerometer, $15 or whatever it is, works just great. Mounted it on a flat plate somewhere, or do like what a lot of guys do, including myself. You take an old relay apart, so you just have the shell. You can stick it in there and fill it with epoxy, and then you got a screw down spot right wherever you want to put it.
You can. Just be careful. It depends on how much the chassis is moving around, though. You got to take a look at the signals coming off of it. So if you put it on the spot on the chassis that's getting a lot of shake, it'll sit there at idle when the engine's running or whatever. So there are tricks. I mean, I've seen guys, shoved it in a box full of some kind of wool or something that isolated it, dampened a little bit, or you can do software dampening. Expect to have to work on that signal a little bit to be able to fully use it and understand it. But that's been my experience.
They've got some pretty cool like distance sensors as well. One that I've not got a chance to play with, I've been talking about it for a while, is the infrared sensor. And it's got a linear analog voltage output based on different distances as well. Seems like it'd be a good idea.
Infrared sensors sometimes have problems on different surfaces, so you got to check it and make sure it works on the surface you're on. And I don't know which surfaces best on, but I know people who have told me that infrared ride height sensors sometimes have problems on certain tracks because of the surface.
Yeah, I'd wondered that.
Yeah. Here's a good question.
I've installed.
Yeah, the way to go is the laser measure.
I've installed quite a few of those. The banner laser.
Yeah, the Q40s, Q30s.
Yeah, yes, sir. And a lot of those cars are doing it for power management. It gets to a certain measurement, they're pulling power.
Right. The key to those sensors is that you need to set up a custom voltage instead of the standard voltage. The standard voltage reads 10 volts at the lowest point and 0 volts at the highest point. No, sorry, backwards. Reads 0 volts at the lowest point and 10 volts at the highest point. And if you're doing it for power management, for wheelie management, when it gets up to the top and goes out of bounds, it resets to default, which is 0. So now all of a sudden your 0 is all the way up in the air, which means it puts back in all the timing that you were taking out based on that voltage going up. So you just basically flip the voltages so that it's 10 volts at the bottom and 0 volts when it's up in the air. So when it reaches its top and it defaults back to 0 volts, it's not pulling out timing. It's already at its maximum amount. It stays at the maximum amount.
That makes sense. They're what, 12 inch?
Like I said, if you use it the other way. Yeah, I think they make one that's really, really fine. Make one that's 12 inches or something like that. And then just finding a good spot on the car to put it. I tell people put it right on the K member, just to where it's not going to smash if you come down on it too hard. If you mount a little bracket on the K member on your car, if you don't have a K member, then mount it on some other bar that goes across.
Yeah, I've seen them installed all the way in the front. Generally,
you can mount them up on the front.
If they're power wheeling a lot or they get out of range, I've seen some guys put them in the passenger area, passenger floor area.
Sure.
Frame rail.
Sure. Anywhere that's solid will work, because you just got to remember, it doesn't matter what the very, very nose of your car is doing, as long as you have a consistent reference. If you know the front of your nose comes up 12 inches and at the driver's seat that equates to only 4, then hey, great, put it in the driver's seat and then you've got more range to play with.
but I'm just a wiring guy, so I don't have any, the hands-on data like you have.
Yeah.
That's fantastic information.
Yeah, I've used them on quite a few cars. There's only so much you can do before it upsets your chassis. There's a point where it basically keeps you from riding sky high and the car steering itself on its back tires into the wall. And that's kind of what it's designed for. I don't ever think of them as a run saver, win a race saver. I think of it as a save my parts piece. You still really need to work out the other suspension issues to be a race winner.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it comes down to your chassis.
Right. Yep.
Those are all tools that help you get there.
Got guys asking about, we talked about E-Canoe's new door slammer record today. Didn't those guys run it? Was it a 537?
That is flying.
904.8 meters per second squared, or whatever the hell their metric number was. What is it? What did that end up being? 270 something? Low 270s? Someone help us out.
That is absolutely crazy.
That's moving out. Twin 94s on a Pro line. What are those? 640 inch or 670 inch motors? Brad's not on tonight. He would tell us, but I believe it's one of their Hemis.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's getting down. I don't know what trim that was in. I don't know if that. I think that was. Is it a practice session? Is that at a certain class weight? I'm not sure what the whole story is. I don't have the details on all that, but impressive numbers nonetheless. And he said that both, correct me if I'm wrong, I know that Shane Tecklenburg was working on it because he was posting about it. And then I know Delgado was over there and said it looked like Steve Petty was maybe helping him out with the chassis stuff. That would make sense. But very cool. So anyway, congrats to those guys. Badass. That was neat. That's about all there is to say about that. They're testing it BDRC right now, right? Whatever round that is. They're getting ready. I'm more interested in the Andy Frost, how that goes. Streetcar guy from the UK is over there trying to break into the fives and also trying to maybe break far enough into the fives to kind of claim back a record for the UK for street legal-ish cars. And he's battling the Jeff Lutzes and the Larry Larsons of the world over here, but he held that.
Moving out from street car.
It is, man. It really. I have to give those guys credit, even though some of the guys here are like, it's not really sanctioned. It's kind of loose, rules, whatever, kind of a gentleman's thing, but it's still kind of neat. And the cars are very impressive. So, I mean, I can appreciate. Yeah, it's still fast. Exactly. Who's dogging 580s and 590s in the quarter mile? I mean, geez, that's flying. But anyway, so yeah, that's going on. Congrats to those guys. Good luck to Andy Frost and crew. What else? So yeah, Danny, we did talk about that now. You got that covered. Oh, wait, this guy had a question. In debt 745 is this user's name. How should I wire up a rear cutoff switch? Was going from switch to distribution block in car and then wire off from block to alternator, or should I go straight to alternator, or does it matter? I think it does matter personally, but I want to hear Troy's opinion.
Yeah, I again, keep it simple. Straight from the battery, straight to the alternator. Cutoff switch is completely separate. Battery to cutoff switch up front for all your accessories and starter. Alternator is a completely separate deal.
As long as you cut off the ignition to the ECU, to the ignition system, to everything else that's running off that cutoff switch, it'll shut the motor off when the switch shuts off, and that's what they want it to do, right? And then when the motor shuts off, alternator goes dead. So it's not critical to separate that from the alternator to the battery. That's how I understand it anyway.
They still want you to try to break that wire if you can, just because it technically at that point is a welding lead. If you cut it in half, because your car comes apart in a wreck. So it's best if you can find a way to cut it. Sometimes there are switches that allow 2 cutoffs on one, and you can use that to be able to cut it.
Sure.
Myself personally, I like the painless 50105. It's a giant relay that's made to do that job. It's a specific design as an alternator cut, and it's designed to also drain the excess voltage off so you don't fry diodes in the alternator when you suddenly kill the power.
Yeah, it's when you go. I've always taken it right to the battery for that.
Yeah,
those switches are.
That's just your one risk. Yeah, that's just your one risk, is that you have a hot lead that could potentially be something that creates sparks or heat or a fire, because it's not a.
The downside though is I've actually seen I've actually seen like huge noise problems from alternators when they were tied to the upstream side of the cutoff switch that screwed with all the rest of the electronics. So
and that's why you hook it up to that relay piece. That goes with the switch. It cuts off. The switch cuts off.
Yeah,
and
I see other guys doing it to the starter
alternator
lug.
directly to the.
Yeah.
Ooh, I never do it to the starter lug.
You see guys doing
really
that.
Noisy going that way.
If you got your electronics pulling off that same lead, yeah. But you know it's not off that same run of the battery. But I don't like alternators for the noise they put out, so I like to see them go into the battery. That's kind of my personal thing. But
alternator definitely straight to the battery. Just if you need a cutoff, it can be either one of those double pole switches that has its brake for the alternator, or that relay.
So that eCanoe record was 278.79 miles per hour. Did you ever think you were going to see a 280 mile an hour door car? Holy crap.
What weight are they at?
I don't know. That's what I don't know. I mean, was with the car completely no weights on it for class or anything? So for those wondering what we're talking about we wonder what class that complied with. Typically cars that fast, the door slammers, what trim are they in? NHRA, Pro Mod trim? Doubt it, because they're boost limited. PDRA or whoever else sanctions that the weights for those cars and classes. But anyway, just we're curious to know what trim that car was in. If anybody knows, let us know.
I want to say they run that car in Pro Boost trim. What is it? PDRA Pro Boost?
Yeah, then that's legit. If they're running at any class trim, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't quote me on that and flame me on the internet tomorrow for saying it, but
somebody certainly will.
I honestly, I think I've seen that thrown around about that car before, that it's ran in Pro Booster. I don't know if that is a bankable fact or not.
What else? Anybody else got questions? We still got a half hour to go, man. Otherwise, Trey's going to get bored and just leave us. Keep them coming. James McEwen, so much love for Painless tonight. Oh, there's plenty of hate for Painless. We're just not talking about it. No, I'm kidding. We love the guys at Painless. We're friends with some guys down there in Texas, in DFW area, that work with Painless, and they do they do good, man. They make good stuff. They need to make more race car stuff. I'm trying to get them to make a switch panel and a relay board that we kind of came up with some ideas for, but they haven't come out with that yet. They've showed it at PRI a couple times and got good feedback, but not through the process yet. Yeah, so you're watching the RealTuners video stream right now. It's you're looking at the slideshow from Troy Baum at RaceWires, all the different stuff that he does. Lots of neat things. I think there's about 75 pictures in there that different work that he's just taken pictures of and uploaded. And you have on your website at racewires.com just tons and tons of really cool pictures and projects to look at, which kind of tells me you crank through them. I was looking at the dates on the photos. I can tell that, oh man, he's got a new project in there every week or two. But
yeah, I keep them moving.
Nice. Are you married at all still?
I am. My wife's actually an accountant, so she works more than I do.
Oh, wow. Especially this time of year. That's cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
That's how he gets away with it.
Yep. Right, she does it too. Yeah. So, yeah, you get to do the long hours and nobody can complain. Fair play.
Yep. She completely understands.
Cool.
Well, that's what it takes in this industry. You have to have a life partner that understands this madness.
Right. Ooh, somebody asked a question here. What do you think about multiple smaller batteries to reduce overall wire size throughout the system? My opinion, I wouldn't like that. I think you'd end up with current flow, because multiple batteries are not going to be actually dead equal with each other. So you're always going to have current flow, a little bit of flow from one to the other, and it would cause noise. I think it would be a sketchy environment to possibly have noise issues.
Yeah, and with the new lightweight batteries and stuff out, we see I don't know, there may be some things I'm overlooking, but I don't see any benefits to that.
Speaking from experience running vehicles with 3, 4, and 5 batteries at a time, I wouldn't even want those headaches if I didn't have to deal with them. That's just a major pain in the rear.
My buddy Eric from Kansas City is asking, does the RaceWire setup come with wiring color code?
Yes. The Brian Black stuff.
That's what he's talking about. Yep. Eric Roston.
Yeah, I have one of Brian's systems for my current my car, and he makes you a complete key for everything.
Yeah.
For
it's
it.
a real nice setup. Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
He found a way to do it on the bench, and it's a really nice system for the guys that want to do it themselves. But he takes the bulk of the work out of it. You still have to run the harnesses, you still have to organize it all, but as far as panel wise,
he'll do some partial organizing for you too. If you know ahead of time, hey, all this stuff has gone up to the front bumper, you tell him that, and he'll bundle that stuff for you to the front that goes up to the front bumper. If you have, I'm going to the back of the car, I need 16 feet, they'll do that for you. He'll give you those wire links. If you tell him, I want this to be red and this to be yellow and this to be green, he'll try to give you those wire colors as well.
Next question. Go ahead.
That's what he did with my car, because my car on my board, I've got the fuse panel, and then I have 4 connectors on it, 3 connectors on it, 4. I can't remember. It's been so long since I've seen it, but there's 2 for the chassis, 1 to the front of the car for lights, 1 to the back of the car for lights, and then 1 to the switch panel, and then 1 for the engine exclusively. So it's 4 connections to the wiring board is all that you have. So he does a really nice job with all that.
Yeah, he builds nice stuff. He's a great guy to deal with.
Dave67 thinks that the E-Canoe car is an Extreme Pro Mod trim. Not 100% sure.
Yeah, it's one of those crazy level classes that they've got.
Yep. So, let's see. What light AGM battery is everyone using on street cars these days? Preston Edmonds. What are you installing, Troy? You're putting batteries in cars, I'm guessing?
Honestly, most of the ones that come through here, they already have the lightweight lithiums, and on the street, that I don't know.
I'm not sure on the street cars, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they, I don't know anybody.
I'm not a big fan of them in a street car.
Yeah, me either. Give me my Group 47.
I've had a few cars that I've done that have had those in it, and they didn't last long. They were replacing batteries a lot. They're not made for that kind of duty.
So the short-term duty at the, racing-wise is okay, but the long-term.
They didn't like long road trips. Basically, they were fine. Go down the track, come around, recharge. They didn't like long road trips. And I think some of it has to do with the charge. Because when you overcharge a battery, you basically destroy it. You overheat it and destroy it. And I think that the constant alternator charge over a long time was too much for them.
Yeah, they didn't like that. They like to be charged quick, designed to discharge and then charge quick and then stop.
Yep.
Yeah. I've been
told. And what kind
of
battery was that?
I've seen several different ones, but it's the super lightweight.
The super light lithium
the little
ones.
tiny ones.
Oh, gotcha. So it's not
I won't say the brand. I not that kind of guy. So
it's not like the AG. It's not the AGM battery.
No, an AGM is like an Optima, isn't it? The gel cell batteries.
No,
none of those are lightweight.
Yeah, none of them are lightweight. Yeah, like the AGM, like the XS Power and stuff like that. I've seen a lot of cars.
The XS Power ones are pretty solid. They hold up for everything. I've been street driving mine for.
What about the lithium-ion batteries in race cars, though? Or the lithium batteries? Do you guys common to see them in race cars? I mean, I see them in a lot of race cars. Yeah, and then you bring them back and you charge them, at the pits, and it takes 30, 45 minutes or whatever or less, and it's charged up and repeat. But
I've only seen one in a car that was street driven on a regular basis. I had pretty good success with one of those really nice $2,600 for a battery.
Right.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, but you'll pay $5,000 for a set of wheels or a pair.
Right.
And $15,000 for a paint job, but cheap bastards. I'm gonna make my own intake. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I've only got experience with one customer with.
What you trying to say?
I'm giving you shit. I saw you're gonna weld your own intake up. I'm like, get ready. That's gonna take a couple tries. Maybe.
I'm expecting it to. I hope it does.
No,
it's
it'll
a learning
be cool.
experience.
Just make a fixture for it for sure. Make sure you got a good fixture. Keep it from moving around.
Yep.
That's funny. Guys will spend $80,000 on a motor and complain over a couple thousand for an ECU or something.
Oh, I know, right? I know that happens.
My intake dilemma is the fact that I want to learn and that I need to fit under a certain hood clearance, trying to get the best of both worlds. So I don't mind that I'm going to do it 3 times.
Sure. Josh Kimbrough missed kind of the early. He must have just joined, but he says, does 0 gauge power and ground wire have advantage over 4 gauge power and ground? Only if the current draw requires it. So you got to measure and figure out what the current draw is and then go up maybe 1 step just for safety. We talked about that earlier. Listen right from the top. That's my buddy Josh from St. Louis.
I still use that wiring gauge chart off Yellow somebody put up there years ago. I think it's the sticky and the electrical thread. It used to be anyway. There's a good wire gauge chart in there, which is kind of an overkill.
I've seen that on the bullet.
Chart.
I did see that. It's a 400 pages back or whatever. But yeah, I do. Yeah.
I have to go dig that up.
I copied and saved it somewhere. I've got it somewhere. Yeah.
I was trying to find something the other day, and Photo Bucket has ruined build threads.
Oh, thanks a lot, Photo Buckets. Dicks. Yeah, I agree. Now they wanted to charge everybody. Nobody paid for it. So now all those links from years past are disappeared and screwed and gone, lost forever.
Yep. I used to have their 25 gigabyte package, and I just said, nope, screw it, done.
Yeah.
Not interested anymore.
I didn't mind it being slow and full of ads, but I do mind paying for it and being slow and full of ads. That's basically what everybody said.
Right.
I'm trying to dig that up here for you, Scott, and text it over to you in a message.
Yeah, you could send it over on the Discord message. Go ahead, Bjorn.
Bradley Campbell said that wirebarn.com has got a good wire gauge chart.
Got it. Troy just sent it out to me too. Now
he says theirs will work with you on links.
One thing you got to do is remember that it's not technically a voltage and amperage. It's a total current flow. It's wattage rating that you need to look at. So 12 volts at 30 amps is different than 120 volts at 30 amps, right? So it's not necessarily just the amperage you got to think about. You got to think about total wattage going through the wall.
And that'd be different for 12 volt to 16 volt as well.
Correct.
So when you're laying out, some wiring tips for people listening here that are good, that are the do-it-yourselfers. What do you guys like to isolate, like to make sure you're not running any kind of interference? We talked about dirty grounds and stuff like that. What components and what wires do you segregate from each other?
Anything that's critical to running, I make sure those are separate from everything else. If I crank and cam sensor being the perfect.
There you go. Yep. Those are the two that I try to keep separate from everything else. Everything else I just stack on top of each other. If it has to be like that. If you can keep it all separate, that's great. But yeah, crank and cam are the most important ones that I look out for. Same with you, Ryan.
Bueller.
Bueller. It's quiet. He's like,
I don't wire cars, so I'm a hard parts guy. You guys are the wiring guys. Y'all's opinion means more to it than mine ever will.
All right, you said I think right, crank and cam.
I try to keep my my things like water pump away from sensitive things that, like the map sensor, for example, that is somewhat critical. I don't want other engine noise coming across things, and the pump is a motor. And so if it's an electric pump, it's a motor, and I don't want that motor noise getting into my manifold pressure sensor. I don't want it getting into my TPS sensor in general. Things that are semi-critical, like if there's a little noise, it's probably not the end of the world, but it's better if there's no noise.
Yeah, for all the chassis stuff like water pumps and fans, I like to keep them all ran across the bottom of the chassis into the car through a lower firewall or something, and then all the engine sensors, all the critical stuff are all separate up top and right to the ECU. I don't cross over the fan wires. Like if fan harness. I don't cross that over the ECU harness.
For the guys watching the video, I just put on the wire sizing chart. I've got it up on the video stream, but we can post a link to that. I'll put it in the notes, I guess, in the comments here. But anyway,
yeah, you guys can look that over. But that's generally the chart that I go by. It's comparable to other charts. It seems a little overkill, but if you're dealing with like 16 volt, depending on what you're dealing with, it gives everybody a rough idea,
right?
You know what to look for. Good start.
That's pretty good info at the bottom there. The above table was calculated for a 12 volt system and a 0.36 volt starting divided by 0.44 volt charging. I'm sorry, I see starting and a 0.44 volt charging voltage drop at an operating temperature of 150 Fahrenheit. So that's pretty realistic conditions. You know what I mean? That's interesting that they posted that there. A lot of the other gauge charts I've seen didn't include kind of the conditions that these results were anticipated in or planned for. Very cool, man. Badass. All right, I'm leaving that up for a little bit.
Yeah, the other ones are a little more generic, but this one, I found this years ago. Just kind of stuck with it.
Yeah, very good.
What gauge wire do you recommend for my knock sensors?
That's a little inside joke. Troy may not have listened that far back.
You put your knock sensors in the trash?
Yeah, pretty much.
36 gauge.
Right.
Oh, you need OT 2 OT.
Right.
I don't know the joke. But
no, we just we got kicked off of some tuner forums or some crap for making fun of guys that like tuners that are teaching people to use knock sensors and tune to knock. And I'm like, yeah, maybe your little low powered stuff on pump gas or whatever that's working a little bit, but
300 horsepower knock sensor is great.
Yeah,
3,000 horsepower knock sensor equals a bunch of ashtrays.
Right. Just some of these guys were absolutely like the knock sensor is the most important single sensor in motorsports on a high performance car. I remember that's what that post started off as. I'm like, wait a minute.
I thought my spark plug and my eyeballs were one of the most important parts.
Yeah. And then I find out these guys are talking about like drift cars in New Zealand or some shit or something. I'm just like, oh, what forum am I a member of here? So then I got banned anyway. It was one of those I couldn't quit quick enough. So I was banned. You're so powerful.
Well, as educated as you guys are, I can't imagine you read some stuff and your heads just explode.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you see stuff in pictures too, but yeah, I'm just like, oh, what?
Oh. There are
you guys are a lot more
that I read and I start to type and then I erase it. And I'm like, no.
I need to learn to do that.
It's so hard to get the good information out there, but that bad information, man, it just
moves
flies
like
and
wildfire. Yes.
Oh.
With you on that. So anyway, back to the slideshow of let's see here with that wire sizing chart. I'll make sure that's posted up in the comments. That's pretty cool.
We'll get Tom started on 1200 open springs on solid rollers.
No.
I need to figure out how to lash my valves 2000s to pick up 100 horsepower. That just blows my mind.
Oh, that's one I missed, but that's pretty hilarious. Maybe it's possible if your cam timing came way
maybe
wrong.
If you read it wrong and it was 20,000.
Hey, can we talk about flyback voltage? Can somebody explain what that is and concerns and how to avoid it?
Well, I mean, I'll talk a little bit. I mean, it's not something you necessarily avoid. It's a natural part of opening and then closing mechanical contacts, right? So that's my understanding. And that's the simpleton's way of looking at it. I'm sure there's engineers out there that'll make fun of us.
Effectively happens when you collapse a magnetic field, otherwise known as the internal circuit of a relay.
See, I knew somebody would have a better answer than me. But yes. So anyway, it's current that comes backwards through the power of the trigger, the trigger circuit. Usually if you're grounding a fuel injector to activate it and then you let off, well, you get a flyback voltage pulse, and there's circuitry designed to manage that. Probably best to Google and read that so you can get specific about the topic you're talking about. Are you talking about nitrous solenoids? They cause a lot of flyback voltage and noise. You can see it with an oscilloscope or with an amp clamp.
But the easy way to think about it is you're pushing something. We call it voltage. You're pushing something, and then suddenly you put a wall,
It's
has
the
to go
water
somewhere.
hammer effect.
And it basically bounces backwards off that wall from whatever you've closed and goes right back into wherever it was coming
from. Yeah, so you get these waves that and you can see it again on a scope, but
so an electrical blow-off valve
is needed. No,
that's a great way to electrical blow-off valve, like a clenching diode. Some of that, I think, in our world, I hear that a lot with trans-brake solenoids.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
Trans-brake solenoids are notorious for back voltage.
Right.
And that's why we like to put relays in line with.
I do solid-state relays for those and isolate it from the potential of getting that voltage into the ECU control. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just asking because I hear it a lot. I literally know zero about the subject, so I'm sure there's somebody else out there like me.
If you buy a relay that has an LED in it, that LED acts as a diode. So if you buy one of the nice there's a higher clear relays that has a little LED, that's good protection there. That's something you can use that'll help. It's not as fast as responding as a solid state, but it's still faster than you can blink.
So that's kind of like headlight bulbs that have got the LED headlight bulbs that have got the cooling fans built into them to provide the resistance, so you don't have to put a resistor box in line, right? Kind of.
No, a little different.
Completely off, a little different there. Okay.
Sometimes those are so that you can use the same power source for the relay coil as well as the relay power drive, and so they'll latch themselves open if you allow current to go both directions. So when the ground trigger switch is off, that's what I've seen happen. If guys are using the same power feed, some relay boards do that. I don't like it, but so they'll put diodes in it to mitigate that. But I think that might be what he's thinking.
Yeah, you turn the
diode
fan
is
off.
the simplest way to block off any return voltage.
Yeah,
that's what it's designed.
Sure, check valve.
It's kind of funny. What made me think of this? My C10 has air ride on it, and I noticed the other night I was driving it, and when I would air the thing up and hit the valves on it, my dome light would blink when I would release the button.
There you go.
So I don't know.
Yeah,
it's finding that current path through that. That's what that is. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
The weirdest thing.
And that voltage has a mind of its own to where it goes. It's going to pick a path. That path can be very, very destructive.
And it didn't do it until I put an LED bulb in the dome light. So I guess it just triggers. You can actually see it with the how.
Yeah, it's just enough to kick it on.
Freaking electricity, man.
Oh, it's weird stuff.
Yeah. Oh, it does crazy crap. I don't understand it hardly any at all. So you guys are one up on me with that stuff.
Well, these guys
with it every day.
Yeah, you guys have a great way of explaining. I can't explain anything. I just I just make it look pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. The technical side of things is a downfall. A lot of it's common sense stuff, you know. When you're wiring up a car, there's do's and don'ts, but you know.
Hey, here's one. We talked a little bit about this in the class this weekend, Scott. Ground triggering with a ground versus triggering with 12 volt positive.
Does Troy got any preferences on that? I prefer triggering with a ground.
Not really. I'll do whatever is needed.
Whatever's called, right? Yeah, he's the guy that builds the system to spec. Yep, whatever it tells you to do. Different ECUs, a Big Stuff 3 wants to power that fuel pump relay, but everybody else wants to do it ground 12 volt, and Holly can do either way,
I personally prefer to give things 12 volts to power them up, because if a wire fails, then it can't turn on because basically, if you don't give it 12 volts, it doesn't turn on. Yeah, if a wire melts or breaks and it shorts out, now suddenly it's on time. So I like to give something 12 volts, turn it on, and give it a constant ground. That way you have to force it on, it can't get forced on by a short.
It's 6 and 1/2 dozen the other, right? It's if you give it the voltage. What I don't like is I've had problems where a bad connector was causing noise, and that affecting the 12 volt control got through the 12 volts into the ECU and started screwing with the ECU, right? And it's a car.
Sure, that wasn't But that wasn't the 12 volts that was the problem. That was the bad connection.
It was the bad connection, right? But it made the ECU more susceptible to external interference, I guess is what I was getting at. It was causing ignition misfire and hurting parts.
And there are times to trigger by ground instead because it's simply cleaner and easier. If you're putting buttons on a shifter, like TCI has a great shifter that you can buy a panel for the side for a thumb button, and you can get the one that has the 2 on the front, so you could have 3 buttons there. You got trans brake, you got a bump button, a line lock, all on one little shifter. And those little wires are easier to just pass a ground through to go to the ECU to turn things on and off. So sometimes it's easier and faster just to make things like that a ground trigger instead of a hot trigger.
So what else? Bueller?
Don't let Troy play bartender.
Here we go.
You can start on him all you want now. It's like 9:50, so it's 10. It's almost 11 o'clock.
Do
out
you
on the
have
East
a
Coast.
preferred brand of Rufinol?
Jack Daniels. He doesn't understand, the concept of ratios. He's like dyslexic. If it's supposed to be like 3 parts Coke, 1 part Jack, he flips it.
Here's one.
You want to drink soda?
I finished that Templeton Rye tonight finally, so that means it's taken me like 6 episodes to go through this, just sipping on this rye whiskey. It's actually pretty good. I'm gonna get more of it.
Is that? I think that's code for you had 3 margaritas.
No, it's legit. I need to get video going here, and so I can show people what I've been drinking.
Dude, you should have seen the garbage he was drinking this weekend, John.
What was he drinking?
There is no telling.
I was drinking Evian water all weekend and taking Zicams because knew I was going to get sick. My girlfriend had like 102 fever for like a week before I came out here, and I felt myself getting it on the plane. And I was like, oh my God, whatever. So I went and bought $40 worth of Zicam.
I have the solution for that.
Okay, Smirnoff Ice.
You do 2 shot glasses full of Jack Daniels, followed by 2 shot glasses full of NyQuil. And then you take a nap, and
then you get up and teach somebody
and
a class
for
for 16 hours nonstop, and a presentation and a slideshow, and making sure both projectors are working and the wireless is good. And oh God, the classes, man, they're a lot of work.
But those 2 shots of Jack with the 2 shots cured, so you don't have to worry about when you wake up, because when you finally wake up, you will be fine.
I'm sure.
He came
works every time.
He came knocking on the door at my hotel room with a big old bag of like Franzia box wine, drinking like a Capri Sun.
Shut up!
Oh, are you kidding me?
This is crap.
Oh my
Shut
God!
Up. He's totally bullshit, and he's making that up. Because when I was done with the class both days, I went like straight to bed. I had to make a run to the Walgreens and then like straight to bed. Man, I was beat. I actually ended up not getting super sick though. I feel good now. I got home yesterday. Took an extra day to get home, but whatever. Anyway, Franzia wine. I am not a wine drinker. Nor am I. I'm just pizzeritas in an emergency, man. It was the middle of a blizzard. Just nice weather now. It was like 60 degrees today.
You'll never live the pizzeritas down.
No, clearly not. People are posting pictures of it to my Facebook here like as recently as yesterday.
Yep, not as long as I'm here.
Just don't try to drink those in one of those Dick's Last Resort restaurants where they make fun of everything, of the sarcastic eating. Don't try to do that there. We had somebody who went with us that decided they were going to get some foo-foo drink, and they heckled him to death.
Mango.
Man, you breathe. Listen. You go to a Dick's Last Resort. You just don't need to breathe wrong in that place. Otherwise, you get a dunce hat put on your head, and it's on.
Well, they give a hat to everybody at the table whenever you eat.
Hey, okay, hold on. Back to a real question here since we got 5 minutes. It's my guy InDebt745 again. I like your username. I have relocated coils on LS engine with 25 to 36 inch fire coil wires to long. Oh, he's asking if that's too long. Opinion on current loss doesn't matter. I think you're fine. I've made big power on surprisingly long wires. And remember, guys used to do it with distributors.
Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah, I don't think it's a problem because the distributor itself has long wires, requires long wires, and a second gap to arc, which is way worse than a long run of wire. So
they often don't have as much juice as this.
Yeah.
By the time you get every shot, every coil, it's not really
fine.
that big of a shot.
You're going to be
electricity.
Fine.
Here's one. Alex Lund. When wires off a sensor trigger are twisted together, how does that help smooth the signal?
I don't think it does smooth the signal. It just reduces the potential for interference and crosstalk.
So when you twist the wires together, and I see a lot of people do that for aesthetic reasons, just to run like 2 or 3 wires, is there any downside to that?
Not really, other than you end up with a little shorter twist. The twisting helps reduce interference. It's they call it a twisted pair, and you'll find that in a lot of things.
Low current telephony
Cat 5 cable
Ethernet
that people use for
cables.
alternator.
Yeah.
Cat 5 that you use for Ethernet is twisted pairs because it reduces noise and makes it so you can run long runs without having interference problems.
You also don't have to put sheathing on to keep the wires together.
Yep.
And it looks trick.
It looks like candy cane.
Yeah.
They're beautiful.
Oh, you're supposed to use different color wires on each wire?
Everything's red.
Everything's red. I see one on here that you guys could probably answer pretty good. The difference between the coils. Did you see that one? The IGN 1A versus the LQ9. The different style. I know you guys have a lot of experience.
Delgado's probably really, really good at that because he's got some actual real world testing on some of those things.
A little bit. And then he was going off on the LQ9 coils. He says they're complete junk, which I disagree with highly.
Yep.
Those are the best OEM coils you can get. So one of them's the best OEM coil pack with a built-in transistor and for OEM stuff. And then, at the OEM level that you can go get at a parts store. And then the other one, the IGN 1A.
The challenge is there's 2 different truck coils, and one of the truck coils is complete junk.
No, there's actually more than that. There's at least 4 different of those 585 style coils that I've run into.
If I remember right, it's the ones with the heat sink on have the.
And here's my argument. I think people think they're junk. Listen. I think you think they're junk because some of them discharge at 9 milliseconds. Some of them discharge at 5 milliseconds. Chris said there's some that go at 11.
Not the heat sink ones. The heat sink one is the short without the big heat sink on them that go for a lot longer.
Yeah, well, the bottom line
is some of them don't charge anymore past 4 or 5, but the
bottom line though is the reason they go off earlier is because of the way they're wound, and so they're already charged. So you just got to adhere to those limits and know what you've got, and then you will still be able to make 5 or 6 horse per cubic inch with those coils. I mean, there's a lot of import guys making big specific output, and it's not total horsepower; it's horsepower divided by displacement. Because that tells you a rough idea on cylinder pressure, and that's. Again, that also is affected by dynamic compression, a whole bunch of other factors, but a good rough rule of thumb is power per cubic inch. I've had the IGN 1As up at 10.5 horsepower per cubic inch. I know those guys that have taken them, another pound or 2 higher than that. But the physical differences, he was asking what the differences were. Physically, the IGN 1As have 3 separate grounds instead of 2, which is a huge case for ground noise coupling that I talk about in the webinars and at the classes. It shows you that the manufacturer of those coils, which is Marshall Electric, the original ones, not the clones, Marshall Electric made them for Mercury Marine, and they first showed up on the Mercury 1650s and 1250 horsepower, V-drive style race and big offshore boat engines. But anyway, the 3 grounds, one for the power transistor, and then 2 for various high current drains.
One's the ignition and the other is the trigger.
Right. So, one's a reference for the trigger. One's a 0 reference. Right. So they want one to go to this, your ECU grounds, one to go to the cylinder head that it's sparking on, and another one just to go to a dirty style chassis ground or a, something like that. But anyway, that's the main difference. They both have power transistors on board. LS coils have a safety mode which can actually be kind of unsafe, as they'll discharge themselves automatically if they're charged or dwelled too long. The IGN 1As will just melt themselves. So it's your, 6 and 1/2 dozen.
IGNs, I've seen people push them 9 and then 9 or 10. They start to
There's more to it, but we've talked about that in other episodes. But that's the main differences right there.
the IGN is in general considered the hotter of the coils that tends to give you the most spark output.
Yeah. Yeah. They'll draw up to 20 amps on a 12 volt, 13.5 volt system. They'll draw 20 amps per spark event if you haven't dwelled all the way up.
Right. Which means that you got to have like a 10 gauge main wire split to like a 12 gauge to each coil.
Or 14s, I think. I think
or
that's
14,
what you're getting is
yeah.
14s. But yeah, and they take some charge time. That's getting up there. But anyway, common stuff. There you go.
Which
we got guys checking in with 1100.
Needs basically
we have guys checking in with 1100 rear wheel horsepower on 6.0 LS running the D585 coils. So that's making some steam. That's going to be 12,
just made 1500 on some old used 585s off my car the other day.
Nice. There you go.
80 172 and a 3,000 pound, 3,215 pound car with 2001 LS1 coils from a Camaro.
So you can make some steam with those coils. Yes.
What's the most you've seen
out of the coils?
Yeah, like the most horsepower range.
Most I've personally wired up and been in charge of on the IGN 1A coils. I guess specific output the most was 120 cubic inch 4-cylinder dragster motor, Mitsubishi 4G63 base that made 1,338 on a DTS engine dyno at the flywheel. So that's like roughly 10.5 horse per cubic inch. Overall, I think we've seen some of the Motec and Tecklenburg based Pro Mod cars. If I'm not mistaken, some of those guys are going to be like maybe 4,300 horsepower at the flywheel on IGN 1As. Yeah. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
I got a buddy who's been 430s with LS7, LS3 coils. He's been 430s with them.
Boom. Well, it's past our time. We've got to get wrapping it up here, man. Troy, you got to get to work early in the morning, I'm guessing. It's like late your time.
Yeah, I usually work till 2, and then I'm back up at 7.
Oh, gotcha. Damn. So, Are you at the shop right now?
I am. Yeah, I'm gathering some stuff up. Tomorrow I'm traveling a little bit.
Yeah. No, got that coming up. I'm headed to, I'm going to go to 417 Motorsports tomorrow. I'm going to Springfield, Missouri to work with a customer. I'm going to drop in on Blake Hughes' shop. Oh, that's like a 5-hour drive.
Amazing work.
Oh, they do great work down there. They're fun too. They're busy as hell, but good stuff.
I'll give you $100 bill to take Blake a box of peanuts for me.
I will. You didn't even give me $100. I'll take him a box of peanuts.
Take him a box of peanuts and tell him it's from me.
Stick around. Talk to me offline. All right. Well, Troy, thanks for coming out tonight. Stick around. Stay online with the guys here on the chat while I run the little outro stuff, and we'll talk for a couple minutes before we let you go. But just we'll say goodbye to everybody, and thanks everybody for asking questions. Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, well, and I told Troy this, and I'll tell everybody else. We just went ahead and added him to our behind the scenes chat. So maybe if he has time and he's in the shop on other Wednesday nights, he'll have a chance to just kind of chime in and help us out because we need kind of a full-time wiring guy anyway. But so anyway, once again, thanks.
I just make things look pretty. You guys know all the tech stuff.
All of us know just enough to make it run.
To make your life miserable. Just as long as we can blame the wiring guy, we're good to go.
That's all right. I have strong shoulders.
Right on. Well, thanks again, Troy. I'm
going
to do the outro.
I ran a 16 gauge to the starter.
We'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks again, guys. Are you interested in learning how to tune electronic fuel injection live in person with the guys from RealTuners? We have 2-day courses in dyno shops across the country. Register for all of these at RealTuners.com. Click on RealTuners Live Classes. If you'd like to bring 2 or more people, talk to us about group discounts. For more info or to make a reservation, go to RealTuners.com or message us at RealTuners LLC on Facebook. Learn how to tune your own standalone EFI systems like Holley, FuelTech, Megasquirt, Haltech, Fast, and others on the chassis dyno. Includes topics such as traction control, individual cylinder tuning on a budget, and power adders. Upcoming class schedules are as follows. EFI Essentials in Northwest Arkansas, March 10th and 11th, and Dallas-Fort Worth, March 24th and 25th. GM Factory PCM using HP tuners at Shore Tuning near Lexington, Kentucky, April 7th and 8th. Holley EFI at 417 Motorsports in Springfield, Missouri, April 21st and 22nd. Advanced Standalone Tuning in Lexington, Kentucky, April 28th and 29th. EFI Essentials in Detroit, Michigan, May 12th and 13th, and May 26th and 27th in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Then, Holley EFI at 417 Motorsports in Springfield, Missouri, June 9th and 10th. These classes are designed to help you get your project running successfully in a course taught by people who actually do this kind of stuff for a living.